Hello, my name is Kainson Munoye, and thanks once again for joining me as we start our discussion on planned stakeholder management. This is a peculiar process because it comes second in the knowledge area. Previously, we've been discussing planned processes as a first process in the knowledge area, except for the project integration management knowledge area, where we discuss the develop project charter as the first item in the knowledge area. So in this one we are going to look at planned stakeholder management. Previously on this knowledge area I took you on identify stakeholders, where the stakeholders were identified and categorized by their power, their influence, their interests, as well as their impact. So today we are going to be discussing planned stakeholder management. So let's begin and start our discussion. Planned stakeholder management is a process of developing appropriate management strategies to effectively engage stakeholders throughout the project lifecycle based on the analysis of their needs, interests, and potential impact on the project success. The key benefit of this process is that it provides a clear, actionable plan to interact with the project stakeholders to support the project interests. I'm not going to read everything here, but just take note that planned stakeholder management identifies how the project will affect stakeholders. Okay, so previously, the first time in the initiation process group under the project stakeholder management, we examined identify stakeholders, but now we have planned stakeholder management. You want to define how are you going to manage the stakeholders. Alright, so you develop ways to effectively engage stakeholders in the project to manage their expectations and to ultimately achieve the project objectives. Stakeholder management is about creating and maintaining relationships between the project team and stakeholders with the aim to satisfy their respective needs and requirements within the project's boundaries. Okay, as the project goes on, the number of stakeholders might increase, their expectations may change, their influence might change, their interest in the project might also change. So planning stakeholder management is an iterative process that is reviewed regularly. Let's now look at the tools and techniques for planned stakeholder management. We have inputs are procurement management plan, stakeholder register, EEFs, and OPAs. Tools and techniques are expert judgments, meetings, and analytical techniques. Remember, this is the exact same tools and techniques used in identify stakeholders. These are the same tools and techniques we are going to use to plan stakeholder management. Okay, so let's now look at the outputs, that is stakeholder management plan, as well as project documents updates. This is project documents updates, not procurement documents updates. So just take note, I forget to make this change. Projects PROGECT. Okay, so project documents update. So let's proceed to look at these items one after the other. Why do we need a project management plan to plan stakeholder management? The information used to develop stakeholder management plan will include items in the project management plan, for instance, the life cycle selected for the project and the processes that will be applied to each phase, description of how work will be executed to accomplish project objectives, description of how human resource requirements will be met, change management plan, need and techniques for communication among the stakeholders. All these are included in project management plan, and we need project management plan as an input to plan stakeholder management. Of course, we need a stakeholder register, which is the output from the previous process we discussed, identify stakeholders, containing the list of all the stakeholders, their expectations, their power, their interest in the project, their expectation, how they are likely to react, etc. All these details is contained in the stakeholder register, and you need this document to plan stakeholder management. Of course, we need enterprise environmental factors, for instance, organization's culture, the structure, the political climate, and so on and so forth. And we also need organizational process assets. Tools and techniques are expert judgment. We've discussed this before. I'm not going to discuss it again, but maybe you spend some time on this page. You can pause the video to try to understand how expert judgment is applied in creating the stakeholder management plan. Of course, we need meetings and we need analytical techniques. Okay, before now we discussed analytical techniques in identify stakeholders, and where we looked at the 4 different analytical models that are used to identify stakeholders. We discussed the power interest grid, the power influence grid. You remember, we have the influence impact grid and the salience model. But here we are not talking about the exact same thing. We are now talking about stakeholder engagement matrix. So analytical techniques is applied to try to plan how you manage the stakeholders throughout the project, and then you are going to use a technique called stakeholder engagement matrix. So we are going to look at okay, the current engagement can be documented using this matrix. We are going to see it on the next slide. The engagement level of the stakeholders can be classified as unaware of the project and potential impact; resistant, aware of the project and impact but resistant to change; neutral, aware of the project yet neither supportive nor resistant. We have supportive, we have leading. For instance, of course, these leading stakeholders have to be taken seriously. They are aware of the project impact and actively engaged in ensuring the project is a success. So in our previous analytical techniques, the leading stakeholders might be placed in the high power, high interest area. Alright, let's now look at how the stakeholder engagement matrix works. Okay, so what it means is that as you are managing the stakeholders, okay, you need to know that there is a desired level of engagement that you require. What it means is that, let's say a stakeholder is not always available, and the amount of information you want to provide for him, you've not gotten it across to him at the particular time. You've not engaged him as much as you want. So it means that you've not attained a desired level of engagement for this stakeholder. But there is also a current level of engagement, okay, that you currently have. Maybe you've spoken to them on the phone, you've sent an email to them, but then you want to engage them in a meeting, in an interactive discussion, and so on. So once you get to the desired level of engagement, then it can be D. So let's see. Let's take for instance the C. C stands for current. Sorry, I'm not good in writing with this thing. Let's say C is the current level of engagement, and then let me use a different color. The required level of engagement, D, okay, is the required level of engagement. Okay, let's call it desired level of engagement. Let's call it this way. Alright. So we have C is the current level of engagement, D is the desired level of engagement. Let's take for instance now, you want to focus on the supportive and leading stakeholders, okay? So now let's take for instance Kani is a stakeholder that is supportive, right? If he's supportive, then at some time you have a current level of engagement, and then sorry, I want to use a different color to try to understand what I'm saying. You have current level of engagement. That is what you place here. Let's take for instance Saffron is a leading stakeholder, very high level stakeholder in this project, and you've engaged him to this level. Olienda is somehow she's resistant to change. She doesn't want to make changes on the project. Then is a current level. So along the line, as you're engaging them, you're trying to make them become more supportive to your project. Along the line, you now move Kani to desired level of engagement. So here now we have the current level of engagement. Now you've moved to desired level of engagement, and then Saffron also you now also have current can become D. Okay, so this is how you populate the stakeholder engagement matrix to tell you how successful you are in engaging the stakeholders. So try to understand how the stakeholder engagement matrix works as it applies to planned stakeholder management. So outputs of planned stakeholder management, we have just two of them. I have the project document updates, because you might have to update your project schedule, you might have to update the stakeholder register. Of course, you also need we have the project document updates, and also stakeholder management plan as the output. Stakeholder management plan is the output of planned stakeholder management. Remember, identify stakeholders yields the stakeholder register, while the planned stakeholder management yields the stakeholder management plan. The stakeholder management plan contains information like desired and current engagement level of the stakeholders, the scope and impact of change to stakeholders, etc. etc. Please try to spend some time, pause this video, spend some time on this page to understand the content, what really is the stakeholder management useful. So this is how we come to the end of our discussion on planned stakeholder management. Please spend some time to get your head around what we've discussed. I hope you found my presentation informative. Thanks a lot for joining me. As usual, I'm taking you back to the ITTO's page. I'll try to get used to this input tools and techniques and outputs. And please join me in my next presentation, as I'm going to start the next process on the line, and that is manage stakeholder engagement.